Hey, what's up guys? In recent days I carried my Sebenza 31 large quite a bit, and it just reminded me on how spectacular, how great, how fantastic this knife is. This might even be the best folding knife in existence today. So whenever I do a Sebenza or a Chris Reeve video, people get really angry. They jump in the comments and say, hey, there are knives that are way cheaper, that are way better, and have been around for way longer. Now we will get back to the Buck 110 in the end. But let's talk about it. Is the price of the Sebenza justified? Well, if you compare it to other knives, a Benchmade 940 here in Europe is about 300 bucks now. So this is twice the price of this. Is this twice as good as this? Absolutely. I think it's 5 to 6 times as good at least. Here you have cheap T6 body screws. You get a locking system that you don't need any fine tuning, any readjustment to it in the production. You just produce the parts, put it together. You get a locking system that might or might not break, you don't know. You get no detent, you get a thick flat ground blade with a really obtuse edge angle, so you get lower edge retention. So, for instance, this one is CPM S30V, this one is S35VN. Technically this should have higher edge retention, but it does not. Why does it not? Because of the aggressive edge angle. So if you have a high edge angle, your bone in your forearm is not aligned with the cutting edge. You have to use more force to cut with a flat edge angle as this one. This one is super low in terms of the angle. So you are better aligned with your forearm. Therefore you can have less force. Therefore this steel wears less quickly than this one. So technically, even this is the higher edge retention steel, this knife has more edge retention. So yes, this knife is at least twice as good. You also get a hollow grind that has a long-lasting blade, really thick up here, thin down here. It's not the thinnest grind ever, but it's decently good. Now I will say the S35VN in the past from Chris Reeve was rather soft, right? This was not the best performing S35VN. The steel performance really depends. Typically a Sebenza does not go for the maximum steel performance, right? They don't give you the most steel performance in the lightest package for a really good price point. That's not what a Chris Reeve is. It's the best build quality with a steel that performs well in all attributes, right? Stainlessness, edge retention, toughness. Now they made a little bit of a mistake with S45VN, but they quickly corrected that and switched to Magna Cut. So I think Chris Reeve usually has good, solid steel choices, but they're not super exciting. So if you want to experiment with steels, a Spyderco is obviously better. But again, it won't last you because of the screws, because the blade centering will not be there in a couple of years, and there will be blade play development over time. That's something you don't get with a Sebenza. The Sebenza here is 5 years old. Has never been disassembled or adjusted. The blade centering is spot on. The action is smooth. There is no scratching on the detent hole. There is no blade play. So the build quality is just much better than in most other knives. And also the price is really influenced by people coming to the knife community in mass in the last couple of years. So well-established brands like Spyderco, Chris Reeve, Microtech, they have all upped their prices, of course, because there is so much demand. These knives are always sold out, so of course they are expensive and overpriced because that's what the market demands and because of the high production costs. Some people say, hey, I can get a $30 knife that's just as good. That's not true. Again, one of these, the blade centering will be lost pretty quickly, so that means you have to take them apart and adjust them more often. More wear on the screws, and the screws are not as long lasting as these really deep, made in Germany screws that come with their own tools to this assembly. But then again, you get blade play, you get an off-centered blade, you get bearings, not just as a feature, but also to hide the bad tolerances, right? And you can buy 20 of these for one of this. Is this knife 20 times as good? I kind of think so. And also I don't want to have 20 of these Chinese budget knives. I really don't, because to me they're all the same and they're packed with features that are not really necessary. Now obviously it's fun and good to have budget knives, and I love my Ontario Red, for instance. This is one of my favorite budget knives, as you know. It's fantastic the way it is, but I go through them rather quickly, right? Because they don't last. Now, Also think of the ecological footprint that you leave if you buy 20 of these or hundreds of these instead of one of these. And also think about the long-term economic damage that does to the West if you just buy Chinese knives. You also have to support the things that are made here. Like I said, you don't get the maximum steel performance, but you get a good solid steel that performs well, that sharpens well, that stays sharp for a long time with a good edge angle. And you get a design that you don't get with most knives. So most knives these days, and this is also a fantastic option, right, in the cheaper price range. This is like 50 to 70 bucks, really good solid knife. But most knives these days, they have curvature in the handle, in this case because it's all also meant to be a tactical knife, crossover to a work knife, right? But the curvature really does a couple of things, and you can see that in almost all the knife designs these days. Curvature in the handle puts you in a saber grip automatically, so you run out of room back here. And then because you can't push cut with a saber grip, they have to add a choil to make the knife more functional, which is kind of a bad designing, really. Because if you have a straight handle, you're already in the push cut position right here, right? You don't need a choil, and in this case you can actually choke up, but you don't need to, you can hold it from back here. You can choose the saber grip if you like it, or a reverse grip, and it still works fine. You don't slip into the blade because of this, and you don't slip off the handle because of this. And get this, these knives held up next to each other, same overall length, right? But let's look at the cutting edge to cutting edge. See how much difference there is? So the Sebenza large has the cutting edge of a large knife, right? But then it has the overall frame, and even a little bit smaller than a medium-sized knife. And then check this out, the small Sebenza has the cutting edge of a medium-sized knife, as you can see, but then the frame of a small knife, right? So in terms of designing, Sebenzas are just superior to most knives, and they're longer lasting because of their build quality and grind performance. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, and that's probably true for most people. 98% of the time, I prefer a Spyderco to a Chris Reeve. I just like these to carry on a daily basis more often. Because this feels so classy and it feels so good, it almost feels too good to carry. But objectively speaking, this is obviously the better knife. Just objectively speaking. It doesn't mean it is the perfect knife for you. If you think the Sebenza is overpriced, you might need to experience these first and then go through the price classes and eventually upgrade to this one. But don't jump right into a Chris Reeve. It's not worth it because you will not understand the advantages that you get with the build quality, the construction and the blade performance if you're new to knives. This is an advanced people's knife, really. There are many other companies these days that come pretty close in terms of like build quality. You have the Medfords, they have really good frame locks, right? But they are just not there yet. They are pretty close though. Objectively speaking, it's the best, well-made, overall best built knife. And to be honest, it's already a classic like the Buck 110.